Hey, this is Mrs. Harris, and I'm making this video for section 5.3, multiplication of radicals. And radicals are numbers that have a radical sign. We learned about the multiplicative property, which states that the square root of a times b is equal to the square root of a times the square root of b. So I want to look at page 267 off of your homework and go over a couple of those examples on multiplication. So let's look at number 34. So number 34 looks a little bit frightening because it says that it's the square root of 8 times the square root of 6 times the square root of 3. And it wants to make sure that we simplify the expression. And we know the expression is completely simplified when under the radical sign we only have prime factors, or a number that is made up of primes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this property here where I have the single ones. So I have the square root of a times the square root of b. I have the square root of a times the square root of b times the square root of c. I'm going to put them all under one radical sign. So that's going to be the square root of 8 times 6 times 3. Now if you multiply out 8 times 6 times 3, that you discover is 144. And 144 is a perfect square, so our answer is 12. So we started with something that looked a little bit complicated, and we might have thought, hey, I could break this up to 4 times 2, which is 2 times 2 times 2, and break it up. But instead of breaking it up, I decided to use the multiplicative property of radicals, and I just put them all under one radical sign and multiplied it out and found it was a perfect square. So that one really worked out nicely. All right, now let's look at something that's a little bit more complicated. Let's look at number 33. Here we have 4 square roots of 3 times root 21. Okay? So I know that underneath here, square root of 3 is in its prime because it's just 3 times 1. So I'm going to leave that alone. But I'm going to use the property that I have 2. This is the square root of a times the square root of b. And the multiplicative property says that I can put them under one square root sign. So that's what I'm going to do. So now we have 4 times the square root of 3 times 21. All right, well, I know that 21 has factors of 3 times 7. Well, now I have the square root of 4 times 3 times 3 is 9 times 7. And now I know that I have a and b under the sign. I'm going to break them up so it's the square root of a times the square root of b. So I'm going to break these two up because I know that 9 is a perfect square. So it's 4 times the square root of 9 times the square root of 7. The square root of 9 is 3. So it's 4 times 3 times the square root of 7. Well, 4 times 3 is 12. And the square root of 7 is a prime number because 7 is only divisible by 7 and 1. So we are done. So this answer is 12 roots of 7. So you see in my solutions I don't have any decimals. We're not using decimals here. We're going to use the property of the multiplicative property of radicals, and we're going to get to the most simplified state that we can in these problems. And here we can see that once under the radical sign we get a number that is made up of prime factors, we are done. Okay, let's do another example on the same page, the same section. All right, so let's look at number 30. Seems like I like the higher numbers here. So number 30 is going to say 3 square roots of 20 times 6 square roots of 5. And they want this simplified. So I'm going to first multiply the number 3 times the number 6 because those are the numbers in front of the radical signs. They're out. So 3 times 6 is 18. And then I'm going to use the multiplicative property that says that the square root of a times b is equal to the square root of a times the square root of b. So I'm going to use that. Because right now I have the square root of a times the square root of b, which is the square root of 20 times the square root of 5. I'm going to put them under one radical sign. So this becomes square root of 20 times 5. Well, we know that 20 times 5 is 18. Is 100. I'm writing 18 and I said that. So 20 times 5 is 100. And I know that 100 is a perfect square of 10. So now it becomes 18 times 10, which is 180. All right, so I hope that these 3 examples kind of helped you out a little bit. We were talking about the multiplicative property of radicals. So look at these examples and see if they can help you for your homework. Good luck.